We've got all these relationships and we've got all these people that are speaking into our life. And maybe when we're in high school, they're like, hey man, I don't like the way those jeans look on you. Or I remember one time I was in 7th grade and this guy told me I cussed like a white kid. He's like, man, you cuss like a white kid. So I worked hard to not cuss like a white kid anymore, right? I was like, I don't want to cuss like a white kid. That sounds weird, right? And then I remember the times when people told me, man, I remember one time, this guy, he told me, he said, Eddie, you know what? You're kind of fat. I'm not letting you have any peanuts. And I'm in his kitchen because there's a bag of peanuts. I'm like, I'm getting the peanuts! Yeah, he had peanuts. He had no idea. But something changed, right? And people say these things and they text these things and they say these funny things, and before you know it, you begin to be full of these insecurities about whether or not you're beautiful and whether or not you're worth anything, and you're dating this person and they want something from you that you don't want to give, so they start telling you what you're not. They start telling you what you're not worth and how you don't matter and how you don't satisfy them and all the things that you could do and all the things that if you would just, and what you need to be. Then you start working somewhere and an employer starts identifying you and tells you you're not cutting it, you're not making it, you're not enough, you're not good enough, you need to be more, you need to be better, and maybe you're in a marriage and your spouse says, hey man, you're not satisfying me, you're not filling me, you're not what I need, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you are absolutely full of all these things that people say about you, and you're like, man, I don't even know, there's not even a place for it, but what falls out of my life is frustration and bitterness and strain about all the things I'm not, and I live my life insecure, and I live my life struggling with the overflow of what I'm not. And you know what I'm identified by? Insecurity, striving, brokenness. And you know what I take into my relationships? I take into my relationships all those things that were said about me and all those things that I think about myself, and I'm busy trying to believe they're not true, but it doesn't matter how, I might get one out, but there's 1,000 more. How do I ever get full of the right things? You tell me God has an identity for my life. How do I find that again? Because I can tell you what I'm full of today. Full of these words, and I'm full of these things that have been spoken, and I'm full of this brokenness, and I'm full of the relationships that have failed in the past, and all I hear are the words they say. That's why God's goal. That's why God's goal is not that you think about your next relationship. It's not even that you think about your current relationship. Here's where we're starting relationship goals. Do you know who you are in Him? You want to know the best thing you can do for your marriage? Stop worrying about your spouse and start thinking about who God says you are. You want to know the best thing you can do for your employer? Stop worrying about all the things they tell you they want you to do and start worrying about who you are in God. You want to know the best thing you can do as a father, the best thing you can do as a friend, the best thing you can do as a boyfriend or girlfriend? Don't worry about the other person. Start with this. God, who do you say I am? Until you believe that, you'll never be who He would be in whatever relationship you're in. How do I change it? Well, you got to begin to listen to who God says you are. How do I do that, man? I begin to put in His Word. I begin to worship. I begin to read the Bible. Wait, that Bible, that book that sits in my house, yeah. You got to begin to read that thing. Why? Because that's who God says you are. How do I know who I am? You got to read who He tells you you are. You spend time in worship. Eddie, where do I worship? Go to YouTube and click worship music. Ask before you leave today, hey man, what were those songs we did? We'll tell you all three. Worship to them all week. I promise you. I have a list on my phone that is songs I want to learn. And man, it's playing. It's playing. It's playing. It's playing. It's playing. Why? Because when I begin to forget who I am, God brings me back to the moment. And when I remember who He is, I begin to remember who I am in Him. You know what my last 2 weeks have been filled with? Moments where I had to get away and get with God. Because as I walk out as pastor of a church, I begin to forget who I am. And I feel this pull to try to become something else. And God says, son, Son! Son! Just don't fail me. Hey, just shh, shut all that out. Hey, baby, just don't fail me. Okay. And watch what happens. The more I begin to put him in, I don't have to make it happen. Some things there's not room anymore. As I begin to put in his word, as I begin to worship, as I begin to get in his presence, all of a sudden the things that people said about me, the things that people think about me, there's no room for them in me because I'm getting full of him. That relationship that was pulling me away, I don't have room for that. That person that spoke this over me, the thing that said I had to be, the employer that's trying to get me to, I don't have room for you. Because here's who God says I am. But listen to me, you can't stop halfway.
Okay, go talk to Daddy.
You can't stop halfway. This is where a lot of the church sits. There's some God down here, but look at what's over here. All of these things that I do, all of these things that I didn't stop. And if you're not careful, they'll begin to push down and push the word out. They'll begin to push God out. Instead, what you got to do, man, go all the way in and say, God, I'm not done. I need more. I need more. I need more. I need more. God, I need to know you. God, I need to feel you. God, I need to experience you. Once you're full of him, there's no room for this. Here's what's so cool. Here's what's so cool. Now, these things can't get into me. Hey man, you're not good enough. You know, you're funny because God says I'm more than enough. Hey man, you're not pretty enough. Really? Because let me tell you what God says. God says I'm the apple of his eye. Hey man, you're not what we're looking for as an employee. That's cool, because you know what I'm looking for? The place where I can be who God's called me to be. Hey man, I don't think you're going to measure up. No, you don't get it. You don't measure up because I'm full. And I don't need your approval, and I don't need you to pity me. I stand, and I am the son and the daughter of God. I am his child. And I am good right where I'm at. Hey, how you doing? Hey, what are you full of? What are you full of? Hey, do you know who you are? Hey, married people, would you look at me? Married people, do you know who you are? Don't forget. Don't forget. I know sometimes marriage is hard. I know sometimes things are said. I know sometimes things are done. Hey, that's not who you are. You are who God said you are. What do I do, Eddie? I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn. I don't know what to be. I don't know where to go now. Here's where you go. Here's where you go. Calm down. Here's what you do right now. Just be who God would be if he was in the place you're in. Right now, here's what you do today. Love the way God would love if he was in the place you were in. Forgive like God would forgive if he was in the place you were in. Be who God would be. Our mission isn't to make everything perfect. My mission is to look like him and to be like him, to respond the way he would to whatever place I'm in. And God, when I'm done, when I'm ready, will change my place. You'll be amazed at the marriages that turn around. You'll be amazed. Hey, young people, married people, or single people. If you're not married yet, by the way, listen, just because you got a ring, but listen, if the state doesn't recognize you, you ain't married yet, right? You may have a ring, but if we had a ceremony, it isn't done. You're still single. Hey, before you take that step, can I ask you just real quick? Hey, what are you full of? Don't carry something that isn't full of the presence of God into a relationship that you're trying to get serious about. You're not ready. You'll lose your identity and you'll forget who God called you to be. And what you'll be in that relationship is not who God intended you to be. And it's going to end with you or someone else broken. Don't do it. Don't do it. But they so cute. Have you seen them in them jeans?
Where are they going to worship?
And that's why you ain't ready for the relationship. Listen. Who you are in God. Who you are in God. That's where we got to start. Hey, can I pray with you?